You have to tell kids, put your phone away. You know, we're out for a meal, we're supposed to be communicating and talking. Yeah, get your phone away. But that is the way it is for a lot of people. They're just on their phones all the time. So how do we model behaviour for children? What are we putting online? What do we as adults put online? Are we posting lots of pictures of our children? Are we asking them if they're happy for us to post those pictures? Don't forget those pictures are out there forever. You can't get those back. Okay? 51% of parents who use Facebook do post pictures of their children and haven't thought about what might embarrass them later on. And 3/4 of parents have talked about internet safety. Do you have those conversations about being safe online with your children? I know one thing for me is that half the time I don't understand what's going on. Yeah, a lot of the time I'm so busy, you know what it's like, you've got to cook, clean, look after them, go to work, shop, life's busy. And then you've now got to learn about how to set privacy settings and check your children's phone, and it's like a whole other job, isn't it? But unfortunately that is parenting today. That's parenting as I call it in the digital age. It's hard work, it's another job, but if we do it in a gradual way, so it's something that you work on, you know, you relax the rules as you feel that they are appropriate, and you engage with your children on social media as well. Okay? Right, let's play a little game, just a quick game, I like this game. So, young people, you don't get to do this because you know all of them. Old people, as they like to call us, we get to do this. So, just see what we know on there. Does anybody know what the Wiggly World in the top is? No? Does anybody know what the next one is? Brilliant. Next one? This is because we're older. Next one? Well done. Is that because your kids are on Musical.ly? Yeah, people know Musical.ly, okay. The next one down that looks like a cup. Okay, that's the young ones, you see, I can tell. Next one across with the fire. Nobody wants to spell it? Nobody wants to say Tinder. That's Tinder, dating site. Okay, next one's Tinder. Brilliant. Next one? Periscope. Thank you. Whoever said Periscope, nobody ever knows Periscope. Next one's Periscope. Okay, next one down from that start. Yeah, next one across? My favourite. Next one across? Young people don't really do Twitter a lot. Next one across? YouTube for kids. So if you have your little ones, your little 3s and 4s and 5s, put them on YouTube for kids. It's much safer, it filters more, because anybody done that thing when you start watching YouTube and you're watching something very serious, and the next thing you're watching something really strange like, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce, and you're like, how did I get there? I was reading about, you know, space. So this is what happens on YouTube. But not only that, some of the videos are very inappropriate. Sometimes you fall into things that you didn't really mean to be looking at, and that's what happens to children. So YouTube for kids is really good for your little children. Let's drop down to the yellow block. It's now called Yubu. And what that was actually dubbed Tinder for teens. And what children were doing, or do, is they use it like, they look at people and they go like, don't like. And what it was doing, and I think they've stopped doing this now because of data control, is they were linking that child with a stranger onto their Snapchat. What does Snapchat have on it as well? Can anybody think? Locations. So technically, you're linking a stranger onto your Snapchat and you don't know, and they possibly could see where you are if you haven't switched off your locations. So sometimes children are using these apps and not even realising, because it's just fun. It's just a laugh. You know, it's okay, everybody's doing it. Okay, everybody knows Messenger, right? Everybody knows the big F, right? Facebook. So recently we've had a case, we had Kaylee Hayward's case, she was a girl from Leicester who was groomed by a perpetrator via Facebook, and she ended up 2 weeks later dead, murdered, raped and murdered. We've just recently had a guy who's been sent to prison for 14 months. He is a suspect in a murder of a child who was 13. She was sexually abused and murdered. The reason he's gone to prison is not for that murder, but because he won't give his password up for Facebook, because that's evidence. So what we're seeing is we're still seeing Facebook used. He's still a suspect, so we have to go through that court case. But at the moment, he is serving time for not giving up his password because he's implicated in a murder. Anybody know where the little red block is at the bottom? And if you've got little ones, Roblox, yeah? Again, Roblox is fairly safe, not had any major issues, but they did see a mother had been watching her child play Roblox, and what she's noticed is that child was walking, so it's like little Lego people, and they walk through these rooms, and she was walking through a room, and when her mum looked, there was lots of little Lego figures having sexual activity. So the mother had to contact Roblox, and Roblox closed down that room. So the point being, people can create rooms with inappropriate material on children's games. Okay? The little robot is called is Kids Google. It's Kiddle, and it's a really good one for getting your kids onto that, because again, it makes their searches much safer. Okay? So there's a little issue at the moment. If you just flick the next one up, so Periscope, Live.me and Live.ly are what we call live streaming, and live streaming is the next big issue. So there's been a report currently, very recently, where they're talking about live streaming. We could live stream now, we could live stream this out, this gentleman could be live streaming now, and you put it on the website and anybody could focus right down. They'll go right down to Raleigh Street, open up the video and see that we're having a conversation. So whatever somebody's live streaming goes directly out there. The new report has shown that their children under the age of 10 who are live streaming, who are exposing themselves under the control of perpetrators. And why are they doing that? They're doing it, they're generating it. What is it that they gain from that? What do they get back? It's really simple and really easy. They do it for the likes, yeah? Yeah? There's a song like that, I do it for the love, I don't do it for the likes, Chronics. But that's true, they're doing it for the likes. They want to be liked. This little girl was in the report saying, you know, well, I'll do it again, but you need to like me. I want the likes. Or they can send them, I don't know, emojis or whatever. So we have to be really aware that for children, very young children, just getting a like is enough to do things, expose themselves. Don't forget our children live in a very sexualised society. I do a lot of work around the sexualisation of children and young people. When you think of the music, the lyrics, the videos, and all of that that's around children, TV, advertising, it's very drip, drip, drip. So children become very sort of desensitised. When you start looking at what age young boys start to access pornography, studies will tell us that it's usually from top-end primary. So we're talking 10 and 11 years old. They're not going to come home and tell you that their friend showed them something at school. And when they get to secondary school, they're not going to come home and tell you that because you'll take their phone off them. Or they'll tell them something. So they're not going to do that. You have to be aware that you might think my child's not going to do that, but other children will engage your child in behaviour that's not what you taught your child, okay? And I know we teach our children what's right and what's wrong, and we hope that they take that on with them, but it's just to be aware that you can't always control everything in their lives. Yeah? We have to prepare them, we have to arm them, we have to talk to them. I know these issues are hard, I know it's hard to go home and have a conversation about pornography with your child, but they live in that world now, so we have to meet them there, and we have to have those difficult conversations. It's really, really important. So that was just an example of what children will live stream, and some of those you may feel quite shocking when you see a 10-year-old advertising she's twerking, you know. You can just imagine what that's going to attract, can't you? You've got your two hot 16-year-olds. You can imagine what people will zoom in to watch, you know, and communicate with those children. So that's just to give you an introduction. Again, all of what I'm saying is not, I know some people when I finish training, sometimes they want to go home and rip the internet out of their house, but that's not going to work. It's all about how do we work with this? How do we work with our children? How do we protect them from a very young age and sort of, you know, help them negotiate the internet and social media. Okay, next one. I'm aware of the time. Okay, I'm not going to read these out, but I just popped this in because this was the new research and I wanted to just make you aware. I think what was really interesting was when the National Crime Agency had a week of action, there was 131 arrests in relation to online abuse. And what's interesting is 13 were registered sex offenders and 19 were people in positions of trust. That's police officers, school teachers, anybody who's in a position of trust, okay? The lower research is the research I told you about where they actually looked at all the self-generated information that was out there, and most of the victims were girls in that case. But what I want to make really clear to you is that boys are at risk as well. There was a case a few years ago where all the perpetrators were based in Bahrain, and they had affected 18,000 children just through the internet, just through exploiting them, grooming them, and then getting them to perform sexual acts online. And most, if not all, of their victims were boys. So don't think that this is about men perpetrating against girls and women. This is about women perpetrating against boys and men. This is about men perpetrating about men and women to women. It's across the board, okay? So what some of that research really is just telling us about the seriousness of some of the abuse that is online and what perpetrators will get our children to do. So again, it's about being really real about these issues, okay? They're not going to tell you, because if they come and tell you, they're going to get really scared that you are going to say, you're never going on the internet again, I'm taking your phone forever. So what children do is they dig a deep hole by not reporting to parents. What we as parents have to always do is be open. Yeah, this is not a child's fault, this is an adult's fault. Yeah, they perpetrate. Okay, next one, please. Brilliant. So I'm just going to briefly go through some grooming and exploitation information, so I don't want to go over. So what I just want to very briefly talk about is grooming, just so that you understand. I'm not going to do a full-on session, but I just want you to understand that grooming is when a person tricks a young person, a child, in this case, this is around sexual exploitation, into thinking they're special. And what the key thing about that is that child is getting something from that adult. It doesn't matter if it's a like or if it's an iPhone. It don't matter. That child is getting something from that adult. And that is why grooming is so clever and why it's so easy for perpetrators to do it online, because it might just be that that child feels alone, that that child wants some support, that that child wants to feel attractive. When children get to their teenage years, yes, they still want our attention as parents, but they do want a different type of attention. They are growing, they are becoming adults, and they will start to explore other areas of attention. And sometimes it's that attention that grabs them, that attention that a perpetrator might be giving to them. You're beautiful, you're clever, you know, I would love to meet you, you know, you're fantastic. Maybe it's that kind of attention that attracts them. And that's what happened with Kaylee Haywood. She needed another type of attention. But what we have to make sure our children understand is those people are not your friends. Those people are not who you think they are. What will happen following grooming is some form of sexual exploitation. So whether it is that they're meeting them in real time and that sexual exploitation is taking place in the form of rape and abuse, or whether it's online where that sexual exploitation is taking place in the form of sharing images. Okay? Next slide, please. So again, just to give you an idea that there's not just one type of exploitation. There are lots of different ways children are exploited. And it's about being aware of this. We can't, like I said, monitor everything our children do. We have to, our job, I don't know if you agree, as parents, is to take them into adulthood so that they can be independent, you know, free thinking, and be able to manage their lives as adults. Does anybody agree with that? Is that our job as parents? Or is it to keep them in the house until they're 50? I certainly don't want my children at home much past 25, thank you. I think they might be. So my job in my head is I've got to try and get these children to at least 18, yeah? At least without them being pregnant on drugs or going through any horrific trauma, and then supporting them to become responsible adults. Perpetrators will come in all different forms. They will come in different ways. They're not all the ones that we've seen on the news. This picture of Pakistani men is a bit of a, it did happen, we've had masses of cases, but it's a small tip of the iceberg. Actually, where most perpetrators live is on the internet, okay? So it's just to be aware that it's not always out on the street that threat is. We seem to think that our children are safer because they're in the house, they're in the bedrooms, they're on their phones and their computers and their Xboxes in their rooms, and they're nice and safe because they're under our roof. Do you think that's true? In this day and age, it isn't true. That isn't true. Just because our kids are in our house doesn't mean they're safe. Many, many children, like that report I was showing you, they found that most of those children, 90-something%, were in their own homes while they were online and sharing images. So it's happening in the safety of your own home. They don't need to be on the street. In fact, they need to be out there running and playing and meeting people, because actually they're starting to lock down. They're just starting to do everything through social media. Did anybody notice this holiday, if you have a teenager, that they didn't go anywhere? That they just sat in the house the whole 6 weeks. And you'd be like, why don't you go and meet your friends? Why don't you go out? Why don't you go and do something? Well, they've got their phone and they've got house party, so they can just talk to their friends on house party, watch Netflix with their friends on house party, and don't leave the house. And it's frustrating because, you know, you want them to get out there. So I just want you to be aware of this. I'm not going to go into loads of detail around this, but it's just to show you that even their own peers can be involved in their exploitation. I want you to be aware that they don't have to be an adult. We've got lots of examples of children being exploited by other children. If children are involved in gang activity, girls will always be sexually exploited within a gang. That's known. They won't talk about it because it's part of gang life. Do you think they recognise it as sexual exploitation? Do you think girls and boys recognise that they're being sexually exploited? When they've got a boyfriend who's 24 years old and they're in love, do you think they recognise them and they're 14? No, they don't recognise it. And that's why it's really difficult, because it's really hard to pull that child away from that. A really good book to read if you are interested in this sort of line of this kind of information is Just a Child by Sammy Woodhouse. It's just come out, and that's a really good book to kind of understand how a child can be manipulated by a boyfriend figure who's 10 years older, and how that child completely turns away from her family. It's not that child's fault, it is that adult's fault. Another thing we need to get away from is this only happens to white girls. White girls in vulnerable homes because they come from broken homes, because they're in care, because, you know, their parents don't keep an eye on them. That's a myth. This happens to Asian girls, black girls, girls from faith backgrounds, Christians, Muslims. This happens to girls and boys across the board. So don't think that just because we come from a certain community and because we are different with our children, because we bring our children to church, that this can't happen. We have to be vigilant across the board, okay? Next slide, please. So I just want to know, I'm not going to go again, I'm not going to get loads of details, I just want to keep reiterating, your boys, your boys, your boys. Yeah? It's not just about the girls. We hold our girls tight. We allow our boys freedom. But it's the boys too, okay? Our boys are at risk as well. Our boys are online, our boys can be abused, but our boys will not talk about it. So if you think about the football scandal that's coming out at the moment, and that happened in the 1980s, those boys, now men, never spoke about that abuse, and they're now big men, 40, 50 years old, yeah? It will stay with boys for a lot longer. They will not disclose. So we also have to keep an eye out on our boys, yeah? Just because they're boys to be men doesn't make them any less vulnerable. Okay, next slide. So, I think I might be on time here. There might be time for a couple of minutes questions. I don't know, is that possible? So what can you do to keep your children safe? This is, I guess, the question. What am I going to do? She's given me all this information. Now I just want to lock my child up in a room and never let them go out, walk them to school every day, bring them home. We can't do that, okay? We have to work with, you know, this new society, this new kind of digital world. So you need to empower them. You have to talk to them. We have to be brave. Yeah, we have to talk openly. We have to be realistic. We might not like what they're saying. You might not like what they're saying, but we have to kind of open our minds a little bit. If you tell a child, don't do that, don't look at that, don't do that, what are they going to do? They're going to do it. When I speak to children in school, I'll say, what would you say if I said to you, don't share images online, don't do this, don't do that. They all say, oh, we do it. Because that's like a torchlight for the child. If a parent or an adult says, don't do it, I'm going to do it. And I say that because I remember I was a bit like that. So I know what children are like. So saying don't, you know, threatening them and saying whatever it is, it's not going to help. As they get, it works with little ones. As they get older, we have to find different ways. And for me, talking is empowering. Making sure they understand, how do I protect myself? You know, privacy settings. You know, not talking to strangers online. You know, it's just about empowering them. Make them feel safe so they can talk to you, so you're always there. You're not going to get crazy mad because, you know, they've done something silly. They will do silly things, they're teenagers. We have to guide them. We want them, if something happens online, we want them to tell us so that we can get on top of that straight away. Perpetrators know your people when we speak to parents. They can manipulate them. So if they can manipulate them, they can continue to abuse and exploit them. So make sure that children know they can come to you from a very young age. Watch safety videos together, so there's lots online. I think I might have a slide just to give you some examples. Set your parental controls. When they're on phones, when they're little, set parental controls. When they get older, talk to them about setting their own privacy settings and resetting them every few months or whenever somebody does an update. We talked about reporting, and the other thing is checking your history on your home computers. Make sure that they're not looking at anything that's inappropriate. It's very easy for children when they're Googling. Not even, a lot of porn is viewed by children accidentally. They're searching for something and porn comes up. And then they may look at it and that might trigger some curiosity. So it's not always that they're searching for it, it's something that sometimes can just happen. So just be aware of your parental settings. I think my Vodafone won't allow me to look at certain sites. So again, making sure that their phone provider has also got those additional things. You can do that. You can ring up Vodafone or O2 and say, please make sure that they can't access any porn or anything inappropriate. Next slide, please. I think we might be done. So if you want to have a look online, some fantastic resources. You can sit with your children, little ones, right up to 15s and plus, and you can watch some of these videos and have conversations, and that's an easier way to have a conversation about these issues. And if you go onto the YouTube, onto the CRA or Think You Know, there's lots of resources out there for you as parents, so please use them. It's a great way to have conversations with children. Okay, I think there might be one more, and that's just a few more of the videos for the older children out there, so you can have a look at those. Might be one more. So the end slide is really, don't forget, set some rules and regulations at home. No phones at food time, have screen-free time, you know, in the family. Make sure you have time where there's no screens and you have conversations. I always like this picture here with the baby and the two parents and everybody's on a screen, which feels like how we're going. Get them to turn off those notifications. Don't they drive you mad? Oh my gosh. My daughter takes her phone at night, which she really doesn't like before, and we have many arguments, and that phone will ping until 11 o'clock at night. So that just shows you that kids are on there. And in the holidays, that phone would ping, well, I didn't take it as much, but on a couple of occasions, it would be pinging until early hours of the morning. So that just shows you the amount of children that are still online, not getting the sleep they need because of their phone. And you think if they're lying in bed and it's pinging, they're just going to ignore it? No, because it's triggering something in their brain. It's a bit like drugs. It's a little bit like an addiction. That's what they're finding with phones. I bought an old alarm clock. So she couldn't tell me, oh, well, I need my phone for my alarm. So I went on eBay and I bought a right old alarm clock that makes a horrible noise. And I said to her, if you don't give me that phone, I will put this in your room. She gave me the phone. So the alarm clock is working. So I have that alarm clock on standby, little things like that, because they don't really need their phones in their rooms all night long. You know, if it's the alarm that they need, you can buy a £3 alarm clock and put it in their room. So that's my bit done, because I don't want to fit things into it. Have any questions, happy to answer. Yes?
Sorry, it's just about the thing you said at the beginning, that a man went to prison and he didn't give up his passport. I was just wondering, why did they not hack it, but why did they just contact Facebook or something?
Okay, so they did contact Facebook. So what happens when there is a crime online? I know it'll be shocking to you. You think that if somebody has been murdered and raped and they need that information now, because it's like a crime, Facebook can take months to give up that information. Facebook's not based here. They have their own legal laws and etc. But they'll give it up, but they won't give it up tomorrow. So the police then asked him for his password so they could look at his Facebook, and he said no. So they've now got to wait for Facebook to get on it and start giving it up, which is why the mother was in the news talking about Facebook and all these social media has to start being more responsible when a child's been murdered. That information should be given to the police immediately. So it's a really good question. And I don't know, it's funny, I didn't realise, I was watching The Bodyguard, if anybody's watching that, and they're talking about Ripper, and I just thought it was a made-up thing. It's actually a real thing. Ripper is about being able to get information. So it is a law we have. So he's been sent down for 14 months based on that. Yeah? It's a good question. Any other questions? Okay, bit of food for thought for everybody. I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to worry. we can get our kids through this safely. There's going to be some hiccups along the way. They may experience bullying, they may see inappropriate things. It's about them being prepared, and about us as parents, you know, being prepared as well. And I think that's the message I want to leave you with, really. Right, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Our second speaker could not make it today, but the theme of is about the way we look at the mental health issue among our community and faith communities, and the way the discrimination is that. So it's what we want to talk about, but your family could not be here today. So maybe the next series of events we want to hold with the church, we'll make sure we include that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Vanessa, you're on your way out. I'm sure they might still have some questions. I know them. So you need to sit down here.
You want me to stay down there?
Yes. I can guarantee you there may be one or two more questions.
Okay, sir. I will
Praise
stay
the
down.
Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord. Just like she said, I think we have had all that, and they are not exhaustive. And it's something that we need to do a lot of research on ourselves as parents, because this puts a whole lot of more responsibilities on us as parents, especially in the area of being very vigilant. And as long as your child starts holding a phone and he or she can play with the phone, then we have to be very, very observant. We have a 4-year-old child. A lot of things she does on the phone now, they are magic to me. And so, our mother especially has made up her mind that she wants to be on top of the game. I try as much as I can, but now I know that I have no other choice. So we try to look at what she's watching, we try to talk to her, we try to tell her, this is good, this is not good. And she will ask you why. Because the next thing is they will ask you why. Just like she was telling us that when we tell them, oh, don't do this, you can't do this, or you must not do this, they will do it. Unless you give them a valid reason why they should not do it, and let them know the dangers out there. So these are the things we need to understand, and that places a lot of responsibilities upon us. And that means, in fact, one thing that shocked me now was that when they showed us those images of the various social media, many of them I don't have a clue about. I only know about Instagram, which I don't subscribe to. So, whatever you call it. So you can now see now that I'm very ignorant. Because if there's whatever I still out of water. So that means the children will just be looking at us, say this one is behind. And they just keep on moving ahead. And there are a lot of other ones that you don't know. That means we need to update ourselves regularly to keep, to be at par with them, so that we can protect them and encourage them and let them know the dangers of, the dangers that they have been told. The fact that they are told that their bedroom does not mean they are safe. They get into a lot of mischief and so when they are told, this one they say that you cannot come into my room unless you knock. Knock, let them know you are coming. And check, just like she said, and I mentioned it once before, we are the ones who pay for these phones. So technically they belong to us. So when they are trying to be funny, then you have a right to cancel the contract. If you have to go that far, you have a right to cancel, you have a right to let them know that you pay, and you are paying for their safety, and you are not paying for them to run into trouble. So we must encourage them to know that there are a lot of dangers out there, and anybody can be a predator. So the Lord will help us in Jesus' name. So does anybody still have any question for Vanessa? Yes, sir. I said so.
Pastor knows us more, you know. Praise God.
Yes, let him assist.
Praise God. I think a lot of what you said is fantastic. And a lot of them that you said about setting controls seems to you as if it's easy. But a lot of people do not know how to set controls. In fact, there was a program on radio, on TV yesterday and previous day, where Facebook came around and they were interviewing them. There is a lot of controls that are actually available on Facebook that we do not take cognizance of. We can cancel our Facebook and cancel it forever. We can suspend it and do it forever. I'm just wondering if there can be an opportunity even to show practically how we can actually set controls on our phone. Parental controls, apart from even calling our mobile business. Because we don't know. I attended a training one time and the trainer was telling us how to set things on our phone so that in case of emergency, if somebody collapses on the road, that people will still be able to access our phone to get only the necessary information. But not all of us in that training knows how to do it. So I don't know if that is possible that we can do things practically.
Yeah, I mean, I do run a course for parents. We do work in schools for parents. And I don't know, just flip the slides. I've hidden some slides. No more? No. Next one, just try. No, okay. So at the end of this, there's some hidden slides. And what I do is I actually put websites where you can actually go. Because what they have on YouTube, for example, is every Xbox, PS4, they have videos, they have, you know, actual step-by-step instructions of how to set, because we didn't even talk about gaming, how to set your parental controls on gaming, how to set your parental controls on your PCs, so everybody has a very simple, because I think they understand that parents and everyday people, busy people like us, do not know how to do that, and I totally agree with you. So there are steps, here we go, look, so if you keep going to gaming, yeah, keep going, okay, so that's an example of a website or where you can actually go, and that will actually show you exactly how to do your privacy settings for Xbox and PlayStation, specifically. If you go again, right, so, okay, not that one, try again, there was another, no, okay, go back, okay. Try the mobile phone one. Okay, alright. So on the mobile phone one as well, you should be able to, and I haven't got a link on there, and I can find a link, to see how, again, you can set those privacy settings. I think that question is absolutely right, because there are loads of privacy settings within Facebook that you don't even know about, that I don't even know about. And sometimes when you're on your Facebook, somebody puts a video going, did you know that this setting is open, and this means that people know exactly where your location is? And they show you how to shut that down. So there are lots of things that these apps have, and they're doing it for a reason. They're not stupid when they make it difficult for us to unset these things, because they want to know where our location is. They want to access our photos and our this and our that. Have you noticed when you join an app, it says, you give consent for it to access all of your photos? Yeah, but if you don't tick that box, you can't get your app, can you? So you imagine you're a child and you just want to get on Instagram now, because I want to get on Instagram now. Tick, tick, tick. Yeah, they just tick the boxes. Did you know that every time you tick these Instagram and Facebook, I've done it, I've got Facebook, so I've done it, all of your images, videos, actually, they have a right to, and children don't know this, they have a right to those, they own them. So they can use your images any way they want. They own them. You tick that box when you agreed to that 14-page contract that you were never going to read, neither was I. And that's another point, is that children and adults don't ever read those contracts because they're too complicated. Why do they make them complicated? Because they just want you to tick the box and crack on. They want you to use their service. So I think you're absolutely right. There is something that can be done. We could do practical sessions around, you know, we could sit and put videos and go, right, this is how you do it. We could do practical sessions. And all of that is part of, you know, when we have parental sessions. And going back to the community and the church and the schools, that's where they need to be reaching out to parents and getting parents into groups where we can sit and do that kind of work. Yeah.
Just in case you've got a video or a website that's got like a video clip, we've got an app in the church.
Oh, fantastic.
If you send it to the pastor, then we can send it to all the members of the church. And then people can learn from that, from the comfort of their home.
So what you're doing is giving me homework. Next week, I have to go and do homework, website, and I can do that. I'm happy to do that. I will do that for you. I'm here to contact fantastic for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you, Vanessa. There is this question I was going to ask regarding even the information we receive.
Yeah.
There are times when you're sitting in your own room, and you just open either WhatsApp and the image is just so disgusting.
Yeah, yeah.
And is there any way of maybe controlling what comes on your phone? That is one thing. Just to add to what my brother said here regarding training. As far as the job you are going to do for us is concerned, we really appreciate that. But what we're going to do again is we're engaging the youth regarding all these media issues.
Yeah.
And we need to thank Pastor for that. That you take it so serious, more than what maybe ordinary people like me worry about.
So on that point about can you stop all that sort of horrible emails or WhatsApp, I mean WhatsApp's one of the safer ones because everything's encrypted. If you get hacked, which I'm sure some of you have been hacked, it's not very nice. Sometimes you have to change everything. In my experience, it's very difficult to stop unless you can block. So if you get something that's disgusting or inappropriate, you could block that number, you can report. So if something comes to your phone and you go, I don't know who this is, or this person's saying really horrible things, you can obviously contact WhatsApp and report. What I can't tell you is what WhatsApp will do. Some of these apps are brilliant, particularly the ones designed for children, and they will lock something down straight away. Other apps, Facebook, they've got paedophile sites running. They've got children in the Philippines being put in rooms to talk to perpetrators through Facebook. So some of them are great, and some of them are promoting a lot of this stuff, if you like, in the way that they don't act. If you get anything, you can always report. We always tell children if anything comes on, if they're online, there's a report button that they can hit, and they can report abuse. So that there are things that you can do, and where it goes and how it's dealt with, I don't know. There was a case where on a Musical.ly, for example, which is aimed at children, it's got 13 level, my daughter showed me there was a young girl, don't know where she was, but she exposed herself front and back on the camera a couple of times. So my daughter showed me this, and I was like, that's not appropriate. So I then took that to, I had a contact in the Sexual Exploitation Investigation Unit, which are the side of the cops that investigate online abuse. Now, what they will do is they will take that and they will try to find out where that's coming from. They will inform Musical.ly, and then what we hope is Musical.ly will shut it down. But my daughter had been saying, oh, everybody said shut it down, and that was up there for weeks. So they don't take things down immediately. But we have to be on it, we have to report, you know. So that's probably the best thing you can do is block and report, and then hope that somebody will do something about that.
And just to add just a bit of information, if you receive anything on your phone, you don't like it, instantly delete it, because if you retain it and you are caught with it, you are responsible for it. It's like you are spreading it as well.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about that.
That's a very good point, and that's particularly a good point for our under-18s. So we know that sharing images, taking pictures, sharing pictures is becoming a accepted thing amongst young people. Just to remind you, it is illegal to have any images of a child under the age of 18 on your phone that are indecent. You could be taken or spoken to by the police. If you have an image, an indecent image of anybody under the age of 18, regardless if they sent it to you, regardless if that's your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, regardless if it was taken because you're in a relationship, if you have that image on your phone, you have an indecent image of a child. If you share that image, you are sharing indecent images of children. The police do not want to criminalise you as children, but they have been known to make examples, and what that examples do include is children as young as 14 being put on what is essentially a sex offenders register. And that impact on your schooling and going forward is huge. So really, really think about what you're doing if you're thinking about sharing images. Okay? That's the legal aspect of it.
Well, thank you very much for that massive contribution and the presentation. Basically, from what I can understand, we don't have control over what happens on the internet, particularly where we have an internet called the dark web. But what I think we can do is about managing.
That's right.
We can manage within the context of our four walls. And what I'm going to suggest is that, we can ask your internet service provider to send you what we call a static IP address. The static IP address enables you to control garbage in and what doesn't actually get into your network. Because once you have a static IP address, you are there to manage it. Calling, because it's sharing the internet within the house with Wi-Fi, so you have control. And what most of these hotspots normally do is to manage their own security aspects, so that at least you don't go into the shop and you think you can access any kind of information, particularly those ones which are harmful, because they know the government is likely to come down on them and then to shut down the hotspot.
So I'm not an IT expert, I will just say that. I struggle with IT. I think that's another really key as a community, sharing information. I'm sure you've got your people in here and they don't do anything with you because they don't want you to know business, but they can also teach. Why can't young people come and talk to you about setting privacy settings? They can do that work for you as a community. Bring them in to show them. We're talking about them, we're including them. This work I do includes young people as well. I talk to young people and do this work with them. But also we can use their wealth of intelligence around IT and also other people here to talk about. I didn't know about that. Static IP address. So I'm going to go and do more homework now. But that's great because I don't know everything. I'm just here to talk to you. The next step is get these young people to do the demonstration. They could do it. You don't need me back. They could do some of that work. Yeah? So that's a great way to get them involved as well. And hearing their voice. I'm an adult, I'm old, but hear their voices as well. Talk to them, get them to do a session as to why, what do they enjoy about it? What have they learned? What don't they do? Do they do what we're saying or don't they? What keeps them on the straight and narrow? What do they want? Children and young people will say they want their parents to engage with them around these issues. They will say that. They want that education to come from you. What we do is we go, oh, school will do that. I don't need to talk about pornography with my child. I don't want to do that. That's not something I'm going to do. I don't want to talk about sharing images. I don't want to do that. We have to. Because school may do it. Schools don't do it all the time. So children and young people do want you to be involved. And the younger you can start that, the easier it will be. You try and talk to a 15-year-old now about porn and they will want the ground to open up. Yeah? You start talking to your 3-year-old about, like you said, not watching certain things, not viewing certain things, what to do if you do, it will be a lot easier. So get them involved. I can see them all, they're there, I can see them.
Yeah, so just to add, because there are so many things. We've actually had a multimedia week sometimes in this church where we actually discussed, but unfortunately most of the parents don't turn up, so we have the children and the teenagers that actually turn up to actually discuss about being safe on the internet. So, like we said, there are so many, on your phone, you can actually got passwords, you've got now fingerprints, you've got retina, basically that you can actually, so our applications on your phone, you can actually password them, so rather than just the children having access to your phone, just press an application and they can open it. It will actually require them to put in a password or a fingerprint. Also, even downloading applications as well, downloading anything, it would always require for a password, so that is requiring an adult to actually give you access. Also, your mobile phone provider, it comes by default, certain websites are actually restricted, so you can't actually access certain websites, so you actually have to call them as an adult to say you need to be able to view such website. Also, your own broadband, your internet at home basically, all you need to do is to ring your provider and say you actually want them to activate that keep safe. Like for Virgin, they call it F-Safe or something. Just activate it. So certain websites, you won't be able to actually like sort of access on certain websites. So yeah, we're just discussing much more. They're saying, okay, we will try and see if we can do another keeping safe clinic in the church. That is if people sort of turn up, so we can actually help. I know, so on some phones now, they won't receive certain images and certain videos. Samsung, to say, I use a Samsung, if you send me an image that's actually like half naked, it's going to bounce. So it's not going to come in. So we have all those measures there. So, and I know a lot of us actually use all these expensive phones, but we just need to know the things that are in there. So like I said, we can actually sort of arrange a keep it safe online clinic. That's if people would want to then show people how to do some of these things.
And it would be lovely to almost get the kids, to get the young people, to get up there and almost do like a couple of minutes of this is Instagram, this is what we do on Instagram, this is Snapchat, this is what we do on Snapchat, this is... Because I have no idea. When I tried to break into my daughter's phone, she's got it on lockdown like FBI, so it's fingerprinted, and I'm like, wait a minute, we're supposed to just be dealing with a 4-letter number that I'm supposed to have.
If you're paying for it, really,
oh.
So if you pay for the phone,
yeah.
You can actually add your own fingerprint on the phone, so you can access.
I think I'm going home to do more homework. I don't have, because I need to speak to her about that. Because she changes it, so she locks me out. So, you know, things like they're very clever. And then to see me trying to work Instagram is just hilarious, because she sits there laughing because she knows I can't work it. So you need a little bit of maybe the young people, if they're agreeable, to just kind of give them an introduction. So they understand. So because what we do as parents, we panic. So we want to lock you off everything. Maybe if we understood what this is about, you know, if you show us, we feel a little bit better because we can go, okay, I've got it now. That's not so bad, you know. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you. One more question. I didn't go home. We didn't, isn't it?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I think it's quite important that I consider myself to be quite old school, and I have a few parents that are probably the same as well. I think it's important that we parents are educated enough to be able to deal with our kids. I think I find it difficult, to be quite honest, to engage openly with my kids. I think, is there any information out there that can help you, can guide you in how to speak to your kids in a way that you can engage them better?
How old are your kids?
They're quite 7 and 4.
Right, so you need to start conversations. So working around sexual health and relationships, there's guidance, like if you follow the guidance around schools. What we need to start with, the very, very basic level of speaking to our kids about any of this, is what's a healthy relationship. Okay? That's your baseline. That's easy. Different relationships, healthy relationships, you know, what is good, what is bad in relationships, things like that. You can start talking to them about those things from very young. When it comes to your accessing the internet, you can start controlling that a lot more. You police that a lot harder when they're younger. As they're growing up, so you're 7-year-old now, you probably want to start introducing those areas around puberty, because we know the girls will start their periods at 9 these days. So we have to prepare children for all of these aspects of their changes, their bodies. Children are starting these changes earlier. So from 7, 8, 9, you want to start talking about and build. It's always building. If you go online, you just put literally talking to your children about healthy relationships, you'll be surprised at how much support there is out there. There's lots of support. If it's something that perhaps as a community want to do, there's people like myself that will come out and do that work with you. Talk about how do you talk to your children about healthy relationships, changes, puberty, sex, sexual relationships, reproduction. Because they will do this stuff in school. I just want to say, do not be panicked when they start talking in primary school that they're going to talk to your children about healthy relationships. And they shouldn't really use sex education because we don't do sex education as such. They will want to be, and it will start happening in 2020, that we will start teaching children from primary school about healthy relationships. It is important. And I'll tell you why, because 1 in 3 teenage girls are experiencing sexual abuse in their teenage relationship. 1 in 6 teenage boys are experiencing sexual abuse in their teenage relationships. Violence in teenage relationships has increased. Do we want our children to have nothing and then get to, I don't know, 15, 16, whenever they start to have relationships and not understand what a healthy relationship is? We don't want that. So that's why we will start talking to them about healthy relationships, about their bodies. Do our children understand what's not to be touched, where people shouldn't touch, where people shouldn't ask to see? Yeah? Do people understand what I'm saying? There are things on the NSPCC about something about my pants, which is all about, this is my private area. We need to talk to children about that. I hate to tell you this, and I'm not saying this to scare you, but we have inappropriate sexual behaviour happening in primary school. Okay? I want you to be aware of that. This is all part of the work that's out there. We have children as young as 5 who have been excluded or taken out of school because of inappropriate sexual behaviour. That child, that is something that's gone off in that child's life. But however they're displaying that behaviour is coming into school. So we have to protect, inform, make sure our children understand that. So from your little 4-year-old, you can watch Pants, you know, with them.
That's my question. Is that like a recommended age?
Yeah. You start talking to your children from when your children start talking to you. If your child sees you with a big belly and goes, where does a baby come from? Why are we embarrassed to talk about where a biological thing? Why do we say, oh, the stork came? You know, why do we not use, and I won't use the proper words, penis and vagina in front of our children when we know they know a nose and an arm and an eye, but we don't talk about any of this? Okay? It's biology. It's nothing. We are not taking away their innocence. We're not doing any of that. We are informing our children. If we don't do that, what happens is they get to a point, they don't know what's going on. They have no understanding. So it's about starting, it's where you feel comfortable, when it's appropriate, and you'll be really surprised. If a child goes, how did mummy get that baby in her tummy? And you just go, oh, mummy has eggs and daddy has seeds and then the baby's made. You'd be surprised they'd be bored by then. Oh, moving on, next thing. They don't want the full sit down for half an hour and give them the full, they're bored. Later on they might come back and go, well, how does the seed get to mummy's eggs? Okay, then you have to go, okay, right, I need a book. So there's books out there. There's a great book called Mummy Laid an Egg, yeah? So if you go on Amazon and you look at books that are appropriate to talk about pregnancy, because children will ask these questions, it's the most natural thing in the world. You can sit down, look at a book with them, and in part of that you talk about being in a loving, caring, married relationship. This happens to 2 people when they're married, or you know, whatever's appropriate for you, and they care about each other, you know, and they come together, and this is done in love, you know, and you can teach them in the way that's appropriate for you. But you can use books, there'll be some great videos out there, and you just start to feel it out with your child, just start to have those conversations. You know, if you start young, it will get easier, you know, and then if you get stuck, go online, okay, and have a little look for some support, okay? But you can do it, you really can. I know it's hard, but you start now when they're little. You can't talk to your 15, it's hard to go home now and start talking to the 15-year-old because they will not want to know. But you can talk to the 4 and 5-year-old gently, bit by bit, build it up, step by step. Yeah? Do people feel comfortable with that? Yeah? My poor kids live with me, so they get it all, you know. But what was interesting, I don't want to go over my time, my daughter just did a little audition. They're doing a film. And the film's going to be around pornography. She's 14. So she did an audition to see if she'd get the role to be one of the characters. And then she rang me and said, oh yeah, it's really good. And she said, oh, but then he started asking me questions about pornography. And I went, well, you should be okay, because we have those discussions at home. And she said, yeah, I felt that. She said, it was all right. I felt like it was really good. And she said all the right things. She talked about how it can be, you know, the relationships that boys have, the way that boys view women because of their impact of pornography. She talked about the way boys view pornography at a very young age. I was really proud. And I thought, good for you. Because if we hadn't had those conversations and we hadn't had those discussions, we talk about lyrics. We talk about the lyrics the kids hear in the music when they're playing that music in the house, and I have to go, turn that off because it's inappropriate. I do not want to hear that, and I will tell them why. You know, if we're watching a video and I will say, why is it always a load of women in next to nothing? Why is it that the men can't be dressed up? Why can't the women be dressed? or if there's a video where it portrays women positively, you know, or we see positive black images of women and black women, you know, I always go, that's a really nice video. You know, so yeah, that's all the ways you can have those conversations with your children. They're all the ways to start slowly picking things up as you go along and have those open conversations. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, we're going over, aren't we?
Just very briefly, I've had a lot about trying to shelter your children and things like that. However, do you think it might be too much?
Okay.
Because people will be adults tomorrow, even the parents and things like that. So how do you balance it? Because at the end of the day, you need to allow them, you know, deal with some of these things yourselves. Because if we take all the problems from them, then they become ineffective when our presence is gone.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And that's going back to saying our job as parents is to get that child from that baby to that legal child of 18 and beyond nowadays, because they're not fully grown adults at that age. It is a step-by-step approach, and I think you're absolutely right. Everything in life is learning, isn't it? Even for children. We are on a journey, we are learning. And part of that learning, you are there to support and to help them learn. And it's not about bombarding them about conversations about pornography. As I said, it's very gradual. So it's bit by bit, you know. And as you said, yes, they will have to learn. But like you said, okay, let's say they go to school and somebody shows them an image and it upsets them, because it does upset them when they first see images of pornography and images that are not very nice. What we want them to do is come home and say, Dad, somebody showed me this horrible image today, and you have that conversation. You know, you don't have to look at that. These images are not positive images. You know, that person shouldn't have that. If you feel strongly enough that that person is creating a problem by showing those things in school, ring school. Say, I know that some children are showing pornography in school. My child's been shown something and I'm not happy about it. You don't have to give names, but you can also involve school, because school has a responsibility. I mean, I don't know why we have some phones in schools, to be honest, but school has a responsibility to pick that up as well, to talk to the children about those things. So it's very gradual. You don't have to bombard your children when they're very young. You take it step by step. You know? When do you pull out? You never pull out. We don't pull out as parents. We never pull out our house really bad in the window. We don't do that as parents, do we? We hold their hand, you know? We slowly let them go. When they start riding a bike, we hold on to it and then they start to go, don't they? But they have to learn to drive next. So we have to be with them while they learn to drive, and then they learn to drive. Then they move out the house, and we have to be with them while they move out the house, and then they move on. I don't think we ever stop supporting and being there for our children. I think we're always holding their hand until they can navigate. So I think that's for me what we're always doing. So we're giving them that thing bit by bit, and then eventually they will be able to take that and run.
Praise the Lord. Can we give a clap for friends? Thank you so much. I want to also thank the International Development Foundation for making it possible. Thank you, Dr. Abia Buratuni, and I hope that praise the Lord. I hope you have heard everything, so please let's work on that. Like the one the multimedia said, multimedia, if you are going to have that kind of program in future, it will also be a Sunday. It will be a Sunday like this service. That is when I can guarantee you that you get a full house. If you are talking on the Saturday for parents to be around, that will not work. Praise the Lord. So we work on something and fix it maybe early next year or towards the end of the year. Praise the Lord. I think we are now in an offering.
Time. I know it's very scary after such a topic about children. Brother George read Isaiah 54:18 that our children shall be taught by our Lord, and great is the peace that they will receive. Amen.
Amen.
So let's be meditating on that our children will be taught by our Lord. Hallelujah. At this moment, I'll just like to read famous Malachi 3. Before I ask those who are tithing, Malachi chapter 3, verse 10, the Bible says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessings that you will not have room enough for it. Tithing also can bring a lot of blessings, even to our children we are talking about. Tithing can bring blessings that your children will not go away in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Can I have those who are tithing to lift up their hands, please? Even them that tithe online, there are people who have tithed during the week. There are people who are tithing today, so shall we just pray for them? In the name of Jesus, Father, I want to thank you for these tithers, even as I follow the precept of Jehovah God. I pray, Father God, that you have said in your word, that yes, you shall open floodgates of heaven, and they will have no room even to put what you shall give unto them. I pray, Father God, that you bless them in the name of Jesus. Amen. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hallelujah. Read 2 Corinthians for the offerings. God likes a cheerful giver. Amen. Amen. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 6 said, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Amen? Amen. Verse 8, and God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shall we rise to our feet as we write our envelopes, our donor number? If you don't have a donor number, you can see Sister Dolako to give you a donor number. And please sign your envelope so that we get back whatever the government has promised to give to them that give unto the Lord. And we're going to sing hymn on page 3. There is a fountain filled with blood. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. suffering in the name of Jesus. Just pray and speak to your Father that, Lord, you are my God who blesses me. You are the Lord who shall even teach my sons and my daughters, even in the things of the Lord. Father, we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And so, Father, we thank you for you are faithful God. We thank you. We just want to ask you, Father, to accept this small tokens that we have brought upon you, that Jehovah God shall bring Almighty God fragrance unto your name. We have help us, oh God, that you accept it and let it bring, oh Jehovah God, help even the work of the church in Jesus' name. Mighty God, I pray and ask that you bless the hand that I have given in the name of Jesus. For that's what you have said, that you shall bless the hand that you give. And for them that are unable to give, Father God, I pray that you enable and open doors for them. That next time they will be, oh God, partakers of givers in the name of Jesus. Father, we claim even open doors for the jobs, Almighty, for your children, that they will be able even to bring a tithe unto you in the name of Jesus. We thank you and we glorify your name. We pray all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise the name of the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Church, praise the name of the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Once again, you're welcome to God's presence. How many of us enjoyed that presentation we just had? Thank God. Pastor Todd is the only one that didn't know some of those social media platforms. But I can tell you, I thought I knew all. I know nothing. I pray that we will not fail God in our opinion of our children in Jesus' name. Amen. It's an announcement time for those of us that have our bulletin. I just want to reiterate some here, and if you have yours on your phone as well, have a look at it. A number of them that the Lord have already said earlier on, but I just want to lay emphasis on them. After this service, please, if you're a worker in the house, you're encouraged to wait behind. As I believe it's going to be a short meeting. It's just in regard to the next month's special service we'll be having with NGO. So please, if you're a worker or a volunteer, I encourage you to wait after the service. Also, elders in the house, you can see that in the bulletin says you have a meeting after service today, but that meeting has been cancelled till further notice, primarily because of the meeting that we have as going to take place after service. So please, we do apologize for that. We will be communicated to later on in the future, as in on the date. And also, you will have realized that sometime now there have been trainings, conferences for workers so that we can equip ourselves more in our service in God's vineyard. Some of them are coming up in the coming weeks. One next Saturday, the 22nd of September, that's the Christian Media and Communicator Conference. That's primarily for the multimedia team, which they are aware of, and there's preparation for that. And also another one for if you are in the welfare team, the hospitality team, or ushers. There's another one taking place on Saturday, the 29th of September. So please take notes. I'm sure more details will be communicated later. And as we have been announcing Workers' Rally, the RCCG Workers' Rally taking place in London with our Daddy Jill will be on Tuesday, the 16th of October. So if you are interested and you would like to be a part of that event, we will encourage you to put your names down, but that event requires you to register the logistics regarding transportation. Please, in the house. God bless you, sir. It's right at the overflow there. So please put your names down with him so that we can. And please do it as quickly as possible. The earlier, the better. The Lord bless you as you do so in Jesus' name. And the new manual, the Sunday school manuals are ready. You want to be among those that will grab the few words. Sunday service like this is not enough. You need to feed yourself with the word of God. And as you decide to do so from today, the Lord will enrich you more in Jesus' name. And that's it. And if there's any other announcement, will be brought to us before the end of the service. Praise
beside us and congratulate them for bringing the service today. A day of liberation, a day of forgiveness, a day of blessing. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. And if you've not seen them for so long, or you can greet them properly. Praise the Lord. And then there's some group of people that you will help us to greet again. Now you've greeted yourself, so hallelujah. Please, if you're worshiping with us for the first time today on the Sunday service, we'd like to recognize your presence. You're so important. We know you're not visitors in our midst because you belong to God. Hallelujah. So if you're worshiping with us for the first time on the Sunday service, can you wave your hands to Jesus so we can recognize you? Can you wave your hand? God bless you, sister. Any other person, God bless you. Brother, God bless you. Any other person, please, if you're there, wave your hand so we can recognize you. Can you please be on your feet, please? Because we like to welcome you in our way. Praise the Lord. So please, can we welcome them, please, church? You are standing on just if you wish to introduce yourself to us, you tell us your name. So if we meet you somewhere else later, we'll be able to call you by name, or if you want to say a couple of things about yourself. Beatrice, anything more you want to share before I share them for you? Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Who invited you, by the way? With your husband. You see, I told you I'm going to. Hallelujah. God bless you. You see, we all need to invite our colleagues, you see. God bless you, Sister Rita. Please, there's a bit of more information to pass on to you by a team, and they're not going to take your time because you need to be back with us before we close the service, which is going to be shortly. Sister Tina's team, are you there? Please, can you just follow them for us, please? God bless you. Church, as they go, and we pray for them, that God of heaven will bless them, will give them a token that just to prove that it's in our midst today and do something spectacular in their lives. In the name of Jesus. Please, my sister, please follow them. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. There's something else to do. We all know that this month is Mommy Pastor's birthday. Hallelujah. It's Regina here. Praise the Lord. And one of our children, one of our daughters, have made a beautiful cake. Not cakes, because it's not hallelujah. And Sister Loretta. Sister Loretta, can you stand up, Sister Loretta? God bless you, Sister Loretta. For appreciating the pastor. For appreciating the pastor. And can we all welcome the pastor and pastor and Shelina to the church? We're pastor. God bless you. Sister Loretta, thank you so much for this. God honor you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hallelujah. And we cut the cake, you know. Hallelujah. I think Shekina is hallelujah. Please, can we call our deacon to come and oh, Sister Loretta would like to say something before our deacon will come and do it in the cutting of the cake.
Thank you very much. The pastors, ministers of God, the deacons, elders of the New Christian Church, and the choir with a golden voice, maximum respect to you, my humble brothers and sisters in the Lord. I bless God for today and appreciate Him, at least for me alive today. This cake, I just spent a little time just to bake and design this cake for my daddy and mommy here. Because they really, impact my life in a positive way. And this is just a little token from me. Silver and gold I do not have. But this is what I have, just to tell them thank you. And it has been interesting to know that in one's life, we always do or we pass through life exams. And I took the time to go to the exam board, that is the exam office, to check the life results of that the pastor here and mommy here. And the result is with me. Please, I'd just like you to pay attention to the result as I read it out. The life results of mommy pastor and daddy pastor. Love, A1. Prosperity, A1. Good luck, A1. Divine favor, A1. Wisdom, A1. Good health, A1. Long life, A1. God protection, A1. The following subject was omitted: sickness, failure, poverty. And they were also absent in the following subjects: death, calamity. The results, the conclusion, they are hereby promoted to the next level of greatness. At this point, please permit me to hand over the microphone to our pastor as he's ready to conclude the custom. Thank you.
Please, before you go, these are two cakes. Why are they two?
Jealousy.
One for the pastor and daddy, the Bible. God bless you.
Praise the Lord.
Church, can we please be on our feet? We're going to call the cake together to say that Pastor, you hold on to your own life. Mommy, Pastor, you hold on to your own. Shekina, you can hold on to your own. So we're going to spell that name.
name that is above every other name. And I will need your cooperation. So when I want you, when I say sound letter J, you sound it loud. And the greater the sound, the more blessings you will get. Amen. So give me a wonderful letter J. Give me a beautiful letter E. Give me an overcoming letter A. Give me a miraculous letter U. Now finally give me a supersonic
God bless you all in Jesus' name. Thank you, Sister Loretta. God bless you all. God bless you and your family. We don't take this lightly. My birthday was in July, so I was surprised when she brought 2 cakes this morning. She said I brought a cake for Pastor. So I was asking her 2 cakes. I said, no, look well. And then I said, but my own was interested because I was not around. I want to appreciate you for your confidence. That people think it was past here to remember me. The Lord remember you in Jesus. Amen. The Lord remember you all in Jesus. Amen. And God be celebrated in Jesus. Amen. Once again, thank you. God bless you. We appreciate you.
Praise the Lord. Everything that has a beginning must have an end. We're about to round up the service. So I will just play with us. Can we be on our feet? To God be the glory, great things He has done. So lovely the world that He gave us His Son.
Father,
great joy all the days of our lives. Father, let every member of this church experience joy unspeakable. Thank you, Father, because we will all end 2018 singing songs of joy. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Shall we share the grace of fellowship together? May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Surely, God's goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Turn to your brother or sister and prophesy to him or her. And surely, God's goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life, and you shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.